If you want to hear the unknown origins and abilities of the other mother that we don't see in the story, then stick around to the end of this video. This lesson is sponsored by Audible. The Beldam is the dreaded seamstress that inhabits a realm used for luring in unsuspecting children to feast on their souls. Welcome to Horror History. Last episode we talked about the history of Coraline Jones, so today I'll be covering her antagonist, the other mother, also known as the Beldam. The story keeps the Beldam mostly shrouded in mystery, but it does leave little clues that we can use to learn more about the creature's past, its distinctive capabilities, and moreover its purpose in the twisted world it calls home. So who is the Beldam and how did it come to be? In order to understand, let's take it back hundreds of years to the origin of the other mother. It's never explicitly stated how old the Beldam is, but we can determine that by studying the souls of the victim she captured. It seems she has been luring in children for hundreds of years, if not more. Perhaps her oldest victim is a little boy whose ghost is discovered by Coraline when she's locked behind the mirror. When he first sees Coraline, he asks, Art thou alive? The phrase is derived from Old English, and its usage started to decline in the 17th century. When Coraline asks if he's a boy or a girl, he can't remember, but he says he used to wear skirts, but believes that he was a boy. He may be speaking of a style called breeching, where boys younger than 8 would be dressed in articles of clothing known as breeches, and that practice was most common from the 1500s to the early 1800s. I researched the year-by-year usage of some of the other words that the boy uses, like governess, taint, scullery, and peradventure, and determined that the boy most likely lived between 1700 and 1760. It is possible that the Beldam is older than that, but the boy is her first known victim. The word Beldam, as we know it today, actually goes back to the 1660s and refers to an old woman or witch, a possible clue about the nature of the Beldam's powers having something to do with witchcraft. The stone that Miss Spink and Miss Forcible give Coraline to help combat the danger that she might encounter is an adder stone, which is also known as a hag stone or witch stone. Coraline uses its magic to find the souls hidden by the Beldam, so it would make sense that a witch artifact would be needed to combat against a witch. Additionally, the adder stone is said to be made from the head of a serpent. The word adder usually refers to a type of snake. The Beldam has many spider-like properties, including the final form, which we see being an arachnid creature, and spiders are said to be afraid of snakes. At least that's what Harry Potter taught me.
It is an ancient creature we spiders fear above all others.
Witches are often portrayed with the ability to transform into an animal form, so it makes sense that the other mother's true form is a spider. It seems that the Beldam has the ability to take almost any form it wants, so it's possible that it only took the spider form at the end because Coraline is afraid of spiders. However, some of her more intrinsic attributes point to her true form being a spider, which I will point out as we go through her story. For example, the Beldam has been living in this other world for hundreds of years and using it to lure in kids so she can steal their souls, which at one point is compared to how a spider weaves its web to capture flies. It's never explicitly stated why she needs these kids' souls, but according to the cat,
she wants something to love, I think. Something that isn't her. She might want something to eat as well. It's hard to tell with creatures like that.
So it seems she needs to lure in these children so that she can eat them, or possibly capture their souls and slowly feast off them for hundreds of years. At the time that Coraline's family moves into the house, the Beldam has captured at least 3 of these souls. Her world looks to be anchored to this one particular house because all of her victims seem to be kids who lived there. She doesn't seem to have the ability to travel and seek out new victims, which may explain why she's so desperate to capture Coraline. She also has the ability to manipulate her world to make it more attractive to the kid that she's trying to abduct. When Coraline moves in, she gets to work creating the perfect world so that Coraline will want to stay there forever. She seems to be able to fabricate her own realities, but she couldn't truly make anything. She only had the ability to copy and distort things that already existed. So she spends 2 weeks studying Coraline's behavior and building a world that consisted of 3 wonders designed to entice the young girl, like a theater that performs amazing and thrilling displays to counter the boring old ladies downstairs, a spectacular mouse circus in place of a strange man living above the Joneses, and a home with delicious food and attentive parents, as opposed to Coraline's real home where her parents were always busy and the meals rarely cater to her palate. The Beldam builds a gateway between the 2 pockets of reality behind a blocked-off doorway to another flat that has piqued Coraline's interest upon discovering it. There were other ways in and out of this world which were used by the cat, but we never end up seeing any of them. When the illusion is ready, the Beldam uses her magic to invade Coraline's dream, making her see dark shapes that gather under the moon and sing, probably to make her dreams seem more interesting than her reality, and make her appreciate the other world even more. One day, Coraline's curiosity gets the better of her and she swipes the key to the unused door and opens it to find the passageway, on the other side of which she meets her other mother. She is described as being taller and thinner than her real mother, with paper white skin, longer teeth, shiny black hair that drifts as if blowing in a wind or a current, and large black buttons in place of her eyes. She tells Coraline to go get her other father, who is another creation of the Beldam. It does seem that there are other life forms in this world, but they're completely at the mercy and control of the other mother. The other father is the first example, but he doesn't have the same origin as the other mother. It seems that he's more of a featureless, blank slate life form that she had formed and manipulated to look and act like Coraline's father, and she's given him black button eyes to sell the idea that the two of them are a couple, just like Coraline's real parents. The fact that the other mother sews together these creations is another example of her similarity to spiders who weave webs using string, which they also use to wrap up their victims. The Beldam is the only life form of her kind in the other world, but there are two other entities lurking in the dark whose origins have never fully been elaborated on until now. If you want to fully experience the dark, twisted world of Coraline, the best way to do it is by listening to the audiobook on Audible. The audiobook is narrated by Coraline's legendary author, Neil Gaiman. I love listening to the story and knowing that every line is being told exactly the way the author intended it. But I use Audible for so much more than just diving deeper into Coraline. Pretty much any book you can think of has a narrated version on Audible, but that's far from the extent of their offerings. You can also listen to podcasts, comedy performances, Audible originals that you'll never find in print, and so much more. What I love about the service is that it can be so hard to find time to read a book in today's world, but thanks to Audible, you don't really have to. It's great for me when I'm making these videos because I don't have to stop every time that I want to take notes. I can just have it continue reading while I'm typing. And when I'm listening to a title for fun, I can turn it on in the car, while I'm cooking, while I'm exercising, sometimes even while I'm working, and I get to hear so many great stories that I never would have had the time for before. Just visit audible.com/CZsWorld or text CZsWorld to 500-500. I'll leave the link for you in the description. Again, that's audible.com/CZsWorld. The other mother and other father tell Coraline that everyone has a second set of parents, and this is all part of the lie created by the other mother to make Coraline feel comfortable staying in the other world. She sends Coraline up to play with the rats in her bedroom. The rats are basically like henchmen that do all of the other mother's bidding. They entertain Coraline and stack on top of one another to give a humanoid form to the clothes of the man upstairs. At first, she thinks this is simply the other Mr. Bobo, just as she has an other mother and an other father. But by the end of the book, it becomes clear that the other mother doesn't have someone to play that role. It's actually just a group of mice pretending to be a person. But there are two more human-looking other forms that Coraline encounters in the Beldam's world, which she encounters when she goes downstairs to check out the theater that has replaced the flat of Miss Spink and Miss Forcible. Coraline learns that the performers did not actually look like old ladies when they take off their fat suits and reveal thin young women with black button eyes. These would be the last two human characters with buttons sewn over their eyes. So we have the other mother, who is the shape-shifting Beldam herself, the other father, who doesn't actually look like Coraline's father, and these two women who are actually just wearing costumes to make them look like Spink and Forcible. So who are these other life forms living in the Beldam's domain? We know that the other mother's goal is to eventually sew buttons over Coraline's eyes, so what if these other people being manipulated by her are the bodies of the children that she abducted over the years? The idea makes sense because there were only 3 of them, 2 female and 1 male, and we later find that the kids' souls have been removed from their bodies and they continue to exist only as ghosts who can no longer remember what they were like in life. While Coraline is busy inside the theater, the other mother returns to the real world and kidnaps Coraline's parents. She imprisons them inside of a snow globe and hides it away on the mantle in the drawing room of the other world. At the end of Coraline's visit to the theater, her other parents greet her outside of the house and make the offer to let Coraline stay forever if she can sew the buttons over her eyes. Coraline promptly tells them that she'll be leaving now, and her other mother's hand scuttled off Coraline's shoulder like a frightened spider. They tell her to come back soon, and she leaves. The other mother seals back up the doorway, likely to let Coraline's anticipation of returning to that world build before she reopens it. Eventually, Coraline returns to the Beldam's world to try to find her parents, and the other mother tells her that her parents were bored of her. And it is here that we learn of another magic ability that she possesses for the purposes of deceit and manipulation. She's able to brush her hand against the mirror and create an image of Coraline's real parents. They appear to be going on vacation without their daughter and boasting about how nice it is not to have Coraline weighing them down. Coraline doesn't fall for the false image, so the other mother resorts to a less psychological tactic by having one of her rats run into the real world and steal the key to the doorway so that Coraline cannot get back out. The other parents go to bed, commenting on how they'll need their beauty sleep if they aren't going to have a midnight snack. I'm guessing that snack was supposed to be Coraline, and this is the first suggestion of the idea that the other mother needs to eat in order to keep using her powers or spells. There's some evidence of this the next day when Coraline wakes up and goes into the other father's study, and he's just sitting there not doing anything at all. She also thinks,
he looked less like her true father today. There was something slightly vague about his face, like bread dough that had begun to rise, smoothing out the bumps and cracks aches and depressions.
The other mother is out in the garden during this time, working on patching up the other passageways that exist between the real world and the other world, so that the cat could not freely travel in and out. The other mother does not like the cat and sees him as a vermin. I think this is because she's afraid of him and his wits. And going back to the idea that her true form is a spider, cats eat spiders, so it makes sense that she'd want to keep him out. The cat claims that there are passages that the other mother doesn't know about. Other mother next encounters Coraline as she's returning from a walk and offers to play a game, which reveals another important trait of hers, her love of games. It is likely that she loves games because her primary targets seem to all be children. It seems like she easily could have sewn buttons over the eyes of Coraline's parents, but elects not to, probably because they have no nutritional value to her. She's also a notorious manipulator, so games are an excellent way for her to strike deals with her victims and cheat her way into winning them. Coraline doesn't fall for the idea of playing a game on the other mother's terms, so the other mother tries to convince her to stay again, casually eating beetles as she does so.
They're cocoa beetles from Zanzibar.
This is the only thing we actually see the other mother eating during the novella. She doesn't eat any of the real food that she prepares for Coraline, and it represents the metaphor of how she wants to consume Coraline's soul. And the Beldam needs that soul to continue to thrive. Unable to get anywhere with Coraline, she gets upset and claims that Coraline has lost her manners by refusing to cave into her demands and locks her in the area behind the mirror as punishment, and keeps her there until the following morning. During this time, Coraline meets the ghost children, which teaches us more about what happens when the Beldam takes your soul. The victims have forgotten their own names and identities. They are only able to remember trivial details about their lives and the feeling of the other mother taking their lives, their joy, and their hearts and leaving them hollow. While Coraline is locked away, the other mother scolds the creature that she had created to play the role of the other father for telling Coraline too much. She strips him of any remaining identifying features and discards him in the dark in the cellar below the abandoned flat next door. She locks him there and swallows the key. The next morning, she retrieves Coraline and brings her to the kitchen table for breakfast, hoping today that she would finally be able to break her. But Coraline would surprise her with a challenge in a scene that teaches us yet another secret about the true nature of the Beldam. Coraline challenges the other mother to a game of hide and seek. If she can locate the souls of the dead children and her parents, the other mother is to let her leave this world. Other mother never planned on keeping her word, even though she swears on her mother's grave to go through with it. We don't know if a creature like the Beldam actually has parents of its own, or a grave though, so this could be relatively meaningless. Coraline seems privy to that fact, so she also swears on her right hand. I think this is a strategic move by the other mother. There are many references to her spider-like hands throughout the story. Her hand is caught in the closing door, causing it to break off of the arm, and it continues to crawl around with a mind of its own. What if the Beldam is actually just this hand? We know that she has the ability to create false worlds and false people, so it's possible that the arms, torso, legs, neck, and head were all just for show to give Coraline a false sense of security. So she had no issue betting on her mother's grave because she likely doesn't have a mother, and no issue betting on her right hand because that would really just be freeing her from the rest of her body. After making the deal, the other mother disappears until Coraline has found 2 of the 3 souls of the lost children. With each soul found, the world flattens, loses its form, and contorts. The once bustling theater becomes abandoned and derelict. I think without the possession of those souls, which she slowly feeds off of for power, she's unable to keep up the illusion of a perfect world that she had set up. She starts to fear that Coraline will find all of the souls and appears again to throw her off course. She regurgitates the key to the empty flat and implies that Coraline will need it in order to find the final soul, which is of course a lie, but Coraline goes to investigate it anyways. Inside, Coraline comes across a giant dead spider in the bathtub. We don't have any information on any other possible members of the Beldam species, but I have to wonder if this is what happens when one of them doesn't get the children's souls to feed off of. In the basement, she encounters the thing that was once the other father, and the other mother seems to be influencing his actions, trying to get him to hurt Coraline.
Run, child. Leave this place. She wants me to hurt you, to keep you here forever, so that you can never finish the game, and she will win. She is pushing me so hard to hurt you. I cannot fight her.
More nervous than ever, the other mother sends her rat spies to go retrieve the final soul from where it's hidden upstairs, but Coraline is able to retrieve it and confront her back in the drawing room. Other mother plans to trick Coraline into forfeiting the soul, but Coraline tells her she thinks she knows where her parents are hidden, in the passageway between the 2 worlds. Other mother opens it to show her that she was wrong, which would prove her to be victorious and earn her the right to sew buttons over Coraline's eyes. But when she turns back, the cat is flying through the air towards her face. It scratches and attacks her just long enough for Coraline to slip into the passage. The Beldam screams screams out, "No," in an inhuman voice, and reaches out to stop the closing door. But it pinches her wrist and severs her hand, which I theorized could be the real form of the Beldam. The hand crawls around Coraline's world in search of the key, so that it would not forever be locked out of the other world where the rest of its body remained. That night, it was unable to get into Coraline's room, and instead goes downstairs to the flat of Miss Spink and Miss Forcible and attacks one of their dogs, leaving a long gash in his side. The next day, Coraline came to visit the old ladies, and the hand heard her say that she'd be playing out beyond the old tennis court, and realized that she would have the key with her. To be honest, I'm not sure how it heard what she said, because the last time I checked, hands don't have ears. But the point is, it secretly followed her to the spot where it knew she would be alone. It arrives to find a tea party with Coraline's dolls set up on a platform with the key in the center. When it went to go steal the key, it realized that the picnic blanket was on no platform at all, and it was stretched over the top of an open well. And the hand of the Beldam fell into its depths before Coraline sealed the lid once more. It's unclear if a creature like the Beldam would be able to survive such a fall, or how long it would survive until the next person comes along and opens the well. It does seem reasonable that if it did survive, it would be able to scale the wall like a spider, but it's unlikely that anyone would open the well again for several years. The Beldam is a mysterious but horrifying creature. It reminds me a lot of the creature from It, from its shape-shifting abilities to its final form as a spider, from its need to feed off of young children in order to sustain itself. Another Stephen King connection relates to The Shining. The actress who plays the young version of the woman in room 237 is named Leah Beldam, and she, similarly to the Beldam in Coraline, takes a pleasant form to try to win the love of her victim before revealing her true nasty self. This two-faced personality is yet another reason that stop motion was the perfect choice to make the film version of Coraline. The faces of each character had to be replaced in order to give them a variety of expressions, and over 15,000 faces were used. If you want to learn all of the secrets hidden within Coraline, check out the playlist on the left. And don't forget to use my link in the description to listen to the audiobook over on Audible. And if you love horror, remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring that death bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.